Welcome to Whatif tutorials. In this tutorial we'll be looking at creating job task templates. Job task templates are used when creating job tasks in the job quotes module. During this tutorial we will be looking at firstly creating a job task header, then looking at cost drivers, and then finally looking at adding costs to the job tasks. First of all, click Templates in the Job Quotes main menu, then select Job Templates, Create Edit Template. Here you see the templates. There's only one. Description, sales, materials, labour, overhead, subcontract, other cost, total cost, standard margin, percent sales. Let's now create a template. To run through the process, click Create Template. We'll select to create a template from scratch, although you can copy from an existing template. Okay, so this is a new template. We put in a brief description here. It's new. We select a job type, bearing in mind that the job types carry with it the percentage of markups, standard markups, and whether or not the pricing is either variable or fixed, and we'll come to that in a minute. It can be for a specific customer or not. It can be just left for any customer. It brings in the default factory active, and it's going to be active. Okay, at this stage you can see the markup, the standard markup for the job type 2 has been brought in, but we haven't got any costs yet. So we'll come down to the pricing. For this type of job type that's been marked as fixed rather than variable. Now fixed simply means that you want to fix the standard price for this template. So this would apply where you have got a template for a task which you want to set the price when it's taken up into your job quote. You want that price to be the set price rather than being able to change it. You can change it in the job quotes, but this simply indicates that it should be fixed. So we'll put in some value here. We might say 20,000, bearing in mind that we haven't yet done the cost, so you can leave that till later, like we can delete that. And then go OK, and we'll come back to it later when we've got some costs in here. No sales, that's okay. Yeah. Then we can put in a longer description, which would appear on the quote. If required. Instructions here for internal use only. Okay, so we've created the header for the job template, the new job template. Now the first thing we need to consider with the in building up the costs is that the costs, quantities of materials, labour, labour, subcontract and other costs can be driven and usually are driven by cost drivers. So the best thing, or the first thing to do, is to create cost driver. We don't need two of those, so we'll delete one. Okay, so the default is when you create the header, the system creates a default driver called job, which has a quantity of 1. So in effect this is where there's no driver applicable, where you want to actually estimate the quantity of materials or labour without reference to a cost driver. So that's the default. Now we can add drivers, and we can add from our driver master file. We might add chair legs. So we're saying for this particular template, chair legs may be a driver and a quantity that is involved is 4. Okay, so you can add drivers like that that may be applicable to the template, and you can also add drivers as you go. So we'll just close that now, and the first thing we want to do is add some materials. Now the materials are contained in a bill of materials, so you just simply add materials to your bill of materials as required for this particular template. Now you'll notice here that it's defaulted to the job driver with a quantity of 1. So we simply estimate the amount required here of the of this beam, and OK. So we've created the item, its cost per unit total. So the bill of materials can have as much stuff in it as you want. So at this stage we'll just leave it at that. So we've now created some materials. Let's try some labour. We click the Add Labour button, and the first thing to note is that it has taken up the default work centre, and then you need to create an operation. The operation can be standard or non-standard. If it's standard, if there is a standard operation that's been created, it'll be found in the here in the standard operations for this work centre. So we've got 1, COP1, manning of 2, chair legs as a driver, and the quantity is in hours per chair leg, and the efficiency is 100, so we'll use that operation. We can change the efficiency here if we so desire, which will increase the estimated man hours. So we start off with the manning and the standard elapsed hours 0.4. You can repeat the operation. You might repeat this operation several times, or it might be needed to be repeated several times, so that can where the repeat operation comes in. And the next thing to notice here, okay, we've ended up with 7.11 man hours. The next thing is that the labour rate cost comes from the default for the work centre, which is this one, and that's $91. So that gives us 7 times that, 649. And likewise, we've got overhead costs coming in, the default set. Now there's actually 2 sets that have been created for this work centre, but we'll stay with the default one, and has a cost of 97 and a total of 624. Okay, so we've added a labour cost. We need, or we might want to add a long description for that labour, explaining exactly what that operation is doing, which would also be able to show on the quote. So we'll close that, and then we go to subcontract other. You'll notice there's subcontract other. They both appear in the one screen, but to create them you have a separate heading. First thing is to select a supplier from the list. You can add suppliers as you go, so we'll use that, and we'll select, say, this one here, cement contracts, and it's brought in the cement contracts, and we will, or we can search for an operation. There is an operation there, but we will put in a non-standard operation there. So that just requires us to enter the cost. So this is the cost per buy unit. We're buying a cement contract from someone. There's a buy unit, usually it's each. So we might have $1,500 there, and so on. And the driver quantity is 1. We can use the driver quantity. We could use any driver in there we wish, but we'll leave it at 1. And the usage quantity is 1. And maybe we're going to do it 5 times. So you can fiddle with these variables to get what you want. So it's a total cost of $7,500. Once again, you can have a long description describing the cement contract. Okay, and the same thing for our other costs. That's exactly the same, but we won't go there at this stage. Okay, so we close this, and now if we return to our header, you'll see here we didn't put any sales in, but we've now built up some costs. We've got a total cost of 16,000, and we got a negative margin, and of course no % sales. So maybe now we go in and say, right, this is a fixed price thing, and we will put this in at, say, 25,000. So that'll give us a 32% margin. We did that before. Okay, You can also add your own comments to this template. So now we've completed that template. Now with the templates, it's using your standard costs from your master files, but you can update your standard costs from your item master file. For example, for materials, if those prices or those standards change, you can update your template. Now what it's saying here is, do you want to leave the sell price unchanged or maintain the current margin? So if you say maintain the current margin and you recalculate, if the costs have gone up, it'll maintain the margin of 32% for you, but we'll just say recalculate, and there's been a very slight change there, you'll notice. Okay, so that's what it's all about. We didn't talk about configured items. Maybe I should just talk about that. In the bill of materials, you can add not only items from the item master, but also you can add a configured item. Now the configured item has to be created first, so we would point there and click configured items, add a configured item, and these are the configured items from the item master. We can bring that in, specify it, and these are the long description, and this is the item dimensions and instructions for that item, and that's the standard. So they are the same at this stage, but you might want to go into your item dimensions and specify different dimensions, say 4,000 for the length, and maybe 1,000 for the width. And what this is doing, we've changed the dimensions. We can change colors, all sorts of things. We can change these three user-defined classifications. And okay, so now we've finished there, and we've now brought in a configured item. We can further configure this item here by going to the bill of materials and deleting some, or adding to, or changing the quantities, and so on. So that gives us a configured item with a configured cost, in this case of 43,000. We can create other configured items in the same way. When we go back to our bill of materials, here for this template, we can add a configured item. There it is there, and use it, and quantity 1. So that is how you can add a configured item to your bill of materials for that template. And that concludes this tutorial.